Everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 815. Today we're going to talk about Age of Galaxy. Now this is a new release that's just coming out from Portal Games, although this is effectively like a second edition, and I cannot pronounce the name of the designer, so I'm not going to make the attempt. But if you go on Board Game Geek and look up Age of Galaxy, you'll see there's an older edition, which I think is about 5, 6, 7 years old. I can't remember exactly. And I believe that was sort of like a self-published type of effort. I believe it was on crowdfunding of some sort. And then now Portal Games has picked it up, kind of. From what I've read, they haven't changed very much about the game. They've upgraded the components, added some stuff that was kind of print and play into the main box, updated the solo mode, which I'll talk about. But what this is a 1 to 4 player game, and you can kind of think of it sort of a blend between maybe like a Race for the Galaxy type of game or even like a Res Arcana game, but it has some more kind of 4X elements like you would think of in a traditional like Eclipse or Twilight Imperium or whatever, what have you. And but it's a very quick playing game, and like I said, it plays 1 to 4 players, and it's a card game, but it is quirky and different. I don't want to bury the lead and spoil the review. I do like it. But it has some really interesting things going on that I've just not really seen put together in this way. So let's go down to the table and show you how it works, and I'll come back and give you some more of my thoughts. Okay, so I've got what the table might look like set up for 2 players. A couple things you can see. You've got the main track here. This here, you'll have player tokens here and their colors. This will track their prestige, which will convert to victory points as well at the end of the game, so however far you go up there. But it will also determine turn order. So randomly we did turn order here, so you can see first player, second player, goes up to 4 players. At the end of each round, you'll take a look here and see who's furthest up, and then the person on top, if they're tied, breaks the tie, and then change up turn order for that round based on who's further ahead there. So that's kind of a turn order track as well. Then you have all of these action spaces here. These are all the different actions that you can do in the game. I'll go through those. Then up here you have these trade cards. So this is also an action that you can do, and these are shuffled up randomly. You're always going to have 3 of them. There's others off to the side. And then you may sort of fulfill what's called a golden age. You can see this is a little icon here. So once that happens, which I'll explain, this will flip over and it'll just change slightly there. So there'll be 3 other sort of trade actions that you can take up here, and those will change from game to game. And then you've got here kind of the galaxy board, the space board, and you will see here the main fleet, and the kind of the concept of the game is a new kind of galaxy or region of space has been discovered. And then you're going to reveal these cards as you play through, and this also acts as a round kind of marker here. So this marker here, you can see this is the only space that players can interact with at the start of the game. There's a technology that allows you to go ahead 1 space, but then in the second round this will move up here, and then we will reveal this card to see what's in the upcoming round. But from the second round, this space and any space behind it will be available and reachable. So in the third round this will move up here, so this space and everything behind that will also be reachable. Now there is a variant you could play actually where you could just show all these face up to start the game just so you can see what's coming, but I've never tried that. So but it is possible to do that. And then there is 1 reference card here, shows you all the icons and it's kind of the end game victory scoring there, and then each player can also get their own sort of reference card here, which talks about the different phases and actions of the game and so on. Now down in front here we have technology boards, 1 for each player. So in this case we've got kind of a teal blue player and then a purple player, and these are the same for everybody. And you also have tracking here a couple of things. So you've got this orange thing here, this is a production token, it starts at 3, and you've got currently your money, this is, or gold or whatever you want to call it. This yellow token is the amount of money you have to spend, which starts at 0. Then you have this brown token and also starts at 0. This is kind of like your sort of strength, your military strength overall. And then the first thing that's going to happen, and it's going to happen every round, is you're going to reduce this production by 1. So it's at 3, so you're going to spend that 1, but then it was at 3, so you're going to gain 3 money that way. So later on in the game, maybe this was at 7, this was at 4, and then you would reduce that by 1, and this would go up by 4, so all the way up to 11. And these all cap out at 12, and that's the max that you can have. Nothing can ever go above 12. The other thing that you're going to do, and this will introduce us to the most important part of the game, is play a card from your hand. So everybody's going to have 7 cards in their hand. Now you can either draw 7, take a look at what you've got, discard 3, and then discard up to 3 and then draw back up to 7. That's kind of the basic way to play the game. Or you can do a draft. And a draft is everybody draws 7 cards, you keep 1, pass the hand to the left, get the hand from your partner to the right, keep one of those cards, and keep going around so you've got 7 more cards. So you're always going to end up with 7 cards. And the first thing you're going to do in the game is play one of these cards in front of you. You see, if you look down here, you've got 3 spots for alliances. Now these cards are multi-use, but one of, if not the most important things, is putting cards in here for the alliance. Now once they're in here, they are in there for the game. The 7 cards that you get after draft or after drawing, that's all the cards you're going to get for the whole game. So you only have 3 spots to put these. So once you have put these down here, then that locks you in for the cards that are in your alliance spot here. Now there is also a spot up here that you can sort of slide it under there like so. And we'll talk about what that is in a minute, but that's also another spot for you. But to start the game, you're going to put a card. I'll just do this one randomly. And whenever you play a card here, and even at the beginning of the game, you're going to get this debut bonus here. So this gives me 1 ship and then 3 money. So I would, at the start of the game, let's say I would have had, that would be down here. This would be 3 money. So I would get another 3 money to start off with. And then I would get a ship. So you have these ships off to the side of the board. And you just put this somewhere within your play area there. You'll have a supply of action tokens and ships off to the side. Don't have any action tokens yet, but every round you're going to get 3 new action tokens out of the supply. So basically every round, most rounds, you're going to get 3 actions. But that's how you start the game. Is you will have this card in front of you, you will have done your production step, which again is reducing production and increasing your money. And then you might have other cards and things like that that, you know, say at the end of the production, do this. But then you're going to just take actions, and you're going to take actions until everybody's done passing. And then except in the first round, you're going to have a war phase, and you skip the war phase in the first round. So when we get to that, we'll get to that. And then you'll have basically a little phase where this moves forward, and then we unlock some certain things. So let's take a look at this board real quick, and I'll talk about the action. So this is going to be driven a little bit by player count. You can see here's a 4, 4, 3 plus, and so on. These little tokens here, these are for a 1+ player game. So these are always going to be put out here. But let's say we were playing a 3-player game instead of 2. We would put this planet, we'd draw it face down and flip it up. And then, you know, say it was a 4-player game, we'd put that there. And then maybe we'd have this other token there like so. So it just sort of scales based on the number of players vying for certain things. But let's take these off here. Okay. And so out here you can do exploration actions to interact with these kind of revealed things. These will always kind of provide different resources and things like that. So you can see this provides one of these relics and then 2 of these knowledge tokens here. There are 3 resources in the game. So you've got, I forget what the pink ones are called, infrastructure or something, and then knowledge, and then the green ones. So you've got the green, the blue, and the red ones there. And these will always give you those. Now, during the game, you can look at a few different things, but these are important for different reasons. These are going to help you upgrade your technology on your technology board. These are going to help you in a few different ways, but kind of notionally, they're meant for an end game scoring action, which I'll show you in a second. And then these are just straight up victory points here. So you get these relics. Those are just kind of nice to have extra bonuses that are basically will convert to 1 victory point for each. So that introduces us to our first action, which is the explore action. To take that action, you need to have at least 1 strength there. So if you have 0 strength, you can't do it. You don't have to spend any strength, you just need at least 1. And then you also need at least 1 fighter or 1 ship that you can discard back into the supply. And then you'll take here 1 of your action tokens, put it here on the board, and then you can explore anywhere that is within reach. And you can see this little dot, dot, dot there. That means basically infinite number of people can do that. There's no sort of worker placement blocking type of thing for this particular action. So you take the explore action, you've got at least one strength, you discard a ship, you look at any space that's within reach. Currently, if the first round is only this space, if it was the second round, it'd be either of these. So you flip that up, then you get the resources. That's the explore action there. Next is the trade action, and I showed you those at the beginning. That's one of these three cards here at the top. So let's just zoom into one of them as an example. Here I would take my little action token, put it there, and I can do one of those two actions depicted. So I could discard one of these little infrastructure tokens and get 5 money, or I could trade 7 money and get 2 prestige. When you see that little cross there, you're going to go up the prestige track like so. And you have a choice of any of those. You can do any of those actions. You could do it multiple times. You can see, if we zoom in here a little bit, there are spaces for 3+ in a 4-player game. So if you're playing a 1 or 2-player game, then only those spaces are available. The difference with the trade action and the explore action here is at the end of the round, the explore action, the tokens are going to go off in the supply. The trade action, these are going to stay put until we fill up spots up to the number of players as indicated by the card. If the card is full, then the tokens will come back to their players and they will get to use those actions for the next round. So you may get more than 3 actions on that round. That's triggering what's called a golden age. So these would come back if this was full, or up to the number of players, and then this will flip over, and then that will just stay like that. It'll only be the one action, but this will never fill up and trigger another golden age or anything like that. So that is possible for that to happen. Now I'm going to skip here the research action really quick and just talk about these other sort of trade-like actions, because you'll look and see here there are arrows going to these different cards. So if I had taken, in this case, the manufacturing action, at the end of the round, this is going to go up here to this card, and then it would also fill up a spot here. And if the spots were full, they'll just sit on the card like so and kind of be excess actions there. So in that case, those tokens have a chance of coming back to you as well on a golden age. So let's take a look at these 3 actions real quick, and then we'll come back here to the research. And you can see these are sort of trade related. If you go here, you can spend any amount of money. For every 2 money, you'll get a ship. Okay, so that's the way to place to buy ships, to manufacture ships. Here, you could spend 3 money and then one of these kind of blue knowledge tokens there. And you can do that as many times as you want, and for every 3 money and those, you can buy relics there. So that might be good at the end of the game if you go to excess. And then here, simply, you place a token and you get a money, which is most of the time the last thing you want to do, but also remember, it will get your token up onto this card theoretically for maybe the next round or the round after to trigger a golden age. So you will be getting that action back. So it's not as bad as it would be if you just got 1 money. So it's some interesting dynamics with that. So those are the 3 kind of generic trade actions there, in addition to the ones at the top. Now next is the research action, where you can spend 3 money or one of these blue tokens, and you can do a basic technology research, or you can spend 3 money and one of those blue tokens, or just spend 2 tokens for advanced technology. So let's take a look at our boards. So when we do this action, we'll be using our action token in this case to put on directly onto our boards. The bottom 2 rows here are the basic technologies, so they're a little cheaper. The top row is the advanced one. Now sometimes you'll have a card even in front of you that'll have a technology that you can research. In that case, they're always advanced, so you're always paying the extra cost, and then you just put your token right on the card there. And so what you do is you have to, in the case of your board, start at the bottom. Okay, so once these are always available at the bottom, now you can see there's a little line here. So now that I've done that, I've unlocked this one. Now the interesting thing is, so once you unlock one on the second row, you can see you can lock the one directly above it or diagonally from it. And this one in the middle can unlock all 3, because you can unlock this one, and that one. So it's kind of an interesting little snaking thing that it does there. So you unlock those, and these give you a variety of different things, little special abilities, give you immediate bonuses and stuff like that. This is a fun little thing to explore, and they're going to tie into some of the endgame victory conditions and scorings, I should say, which I'll get to in a second. I'm just going to go through the actions and then we'll talk about the cards, which is like the whole game. So the last 3 actions here are colonize, develop, and nominate. These all have to do basically with the planets that we see. So the first thing you can do, of course, is colonize. So when you spend money equal to the number of colonies you already have, so the first one's free because you will have 0, then you place your action disc that you're using to take the action onto a planet. So let's just take this card in general. So the first time I do this, it's going to be free. I will put this here, and you can see at the bottom here you get different resources and things like that. So I can do that, and then I will get a relic, again, which will be worth a point. That was free. The next time I do it, it's going to cost me 1 money. I could put it here. This will actually give me a blue token, and you can see it actually also increases my production. That's what that little wheel means. So you can see there the orange production, so I actually bump my production up by placing on there. So now the next one that I'm gonna want to place is going to cost me 2 money. It's just going to keep getting more expensive. Now the next action, which I showed you there, is after colonize, you're going to want to do a develop. And develop always costs 7 money to do that. And when you do that, you sort of upgrade one of your existing colonies. Now, some cards will give you some other ways of doing that, but the basic sort of action is spend 7 money, put a disc on there. When you do that, you will get a prestige, which again is moving up this track. Then you either get 1 money or you can get one of these little infrastructure pink things. And then you will also gain, in this case, when you do a develop, you also gain a production. So again, 7 money gets you a colony, get you a prestige, then you get either money or one of these pink things. I will recommend taking the pink things. And then you also get a bump in your production. So that's develop. Now the reason I'm telling you to take the pink things is because if we look at the nominate action, which is right here, and it just has a requirement that you have 1 developed colony. So you just need 1, and then you can take this action. To take this action, you need to spend 3 of these. And in that case, you'll take your action token, you'll put it on here. You can see there's slots available for the number of players. And then the number of prestige that you gain, which again is victory points, but it's also turn order, will go down. So it's 4, 3, 3, and then 3. And then in a 4-player game, there's 2 4-point spots. So that is the nominate action. And if you can do that, more than once, that's really good. It's a good amount of points there. So again, you just need 1 developed colony to take that action. So that's all the actions that you can do in the game. Now on your turn, you can do as many free actions as you might have available. Now at the start of the game, everybody has this sort of cheat sheet here, and everybody has the same free action. So I can trade in any one of these 2 resources to get a money, or I could trade in 2 production to get a money, which is probably a bad thing, but maybe you do it at the end of the game. And so you can do that as many times as you want, and there'll be other cards that you put out in front of you that might have free actions that you can do. And then also on your turn, you can play a card, and you can play 1 card. And there's a couple of ways to play the cards. So here, we can put the card in front of us for an alliance. If it has like an immediate effect, you'll do that. This will have all kinds of other effects. And the other thing to note here about these, which I didn't mention when you colonize a planet, is you need to have an icon here that matches the icon there. You can see the water icon there, the water icon there. And you need to have one of those in your sort of 3-card alliance here to be able to do that. However, if you didn't have that card, you could discard a card for that icon. So that's what these little icons here are at the bottom right. So a couple things you can do. You can play this for an alliance card, discard it to give you sort of the icon to match to colonize a planet that you didn't already have one for. And when you put them in front of you, just like the beginning of the game, you get the debut. Then you can also just spend them for like a one-time little effect. So basically just discard them to get a resource or some money or some points or ships and stuff like that. So that's what that upper right side is. Now once they're in front of you, they do a couple of things. They might give you extra abilities, enhance your abilities and so on. But the trick of this is you see how I have 2 purples and a yellow here. Because at the end of the game, the way you score points here is going to depend on your major ideology, so like your main alliance. So I'm mainly associated here with the purple cards, because if I have a majority in one of these, which means at least 2 of them, then that's how I'm going to score. And all the abilities and stuff of those colored cards are going to kind of go with that scoring thing. Now if I had 1 of each, I don't have a major ideology, so I'm going to miss out on a lot of victory points, theoretically. But the last thing you can do with a card is tuck it under here. If you tuck it under here, this overrides completely whatever you have down here in terms of colors, and that becomes your major ideology, which is just the way you score points at the end of the game. That's all it is. So, if you take a look here at the end of the game, you'll score 1 point for each of your prestige, which again, this track up here. And then you're going to look here at your major ideology. So you got the blue one, the purple one, the brown one, this one, this one. Now, a couple of component complaints. You can see here, I think this is going to kill colorblind people, but you see that icon sort of faded in the background of that card. So you can't see it there, but we'll get a little closer. So you kind of fade in the background. That matches the icon that's over here. So the color, but mainly the icon, is what you're looking at to compare. And so that's a little bit hard to see there. And the other thing I would say here, just while I'm on it, a couple of component things, is you see how that is the production icon there? That's supposed to be orange, but it looks kind of brown, and that's brown. And then down here you have the strength, which is a red icon, but that's brown. So that's a little bit frustrating, but it's not the end of the world, you know. It's just like once you go, oh, okay, that's what that is. Got it. And then last component complaint is these sheets here for solo mode. So when you play solo, there's like a basic solo mode, which I don't like. But then there's also these scenarios. And the thing is, let's take one of these. Like this one's called the learner. And you're like, oh, it's two-sided. But like the learner on this side, this is Jamiron the Great. Oh, that goes with this. Nowhere in the rules does it tell you that. I had to kind of accidentally figure out, I'm like, oh, there's another backside to the learner, which is actually nice because then you can have both sheets out. And see, this one gives like a whole technology tree. There's a whole bunch of different things. I'll talk about that in the review, but it's nice because you can have both sheets face up, but it doesn't tell you that. So that's just so you know, in case you get confused, you're like, where's the other part of this? Like these two rules don't make sense. So anyway, back to this. Back to the scoring. A little tangent there, but I had to show it. So for this one, if you got this one, for each researched technology, you get an extra point. For every 4 prestige, rounded down, you get a point. This one is for 1 point for each. This is Conquered World, which I'll tell you in a minute, because we haven't talked about the war phase. And then this is 1 point for each colony. Now you can see here, colonies and developed colonies give you extra points, but these don't give you any coin. These are conquered regions, which I'll show you. So if you did this, you're kind of doubling down on your developed colonies. So this is 2 for these, extra 1 there, like so. So if you did that faction, and this is 1 for every 2 of the relics. So remember, those are just worth points by themselves. And then again, everybody will get 1 point for just kind of a normal colony, 2 points for a developed colony, 1 point for each relic. And then some cards will have special scoring conditions. So that's the purpose of these cards, the color of the cards that give you special abilities, and then they kind of trigger for you a way to score points at the end of the game. Okay, so we've talked about the actions, the cards, different things like that. The one thing we haven't talked about is the war phase. So in the war phase, you're going to look at the number of ships that each player has that they've sort of collected over the round, or maybe carried over from previous rounds. So in this case, let's say purple's got 3 ships. The blue player here's got 2. 3 is winning. 3 is the dominant player, or the overlord. So if we take a look here, depending on the game number of players, so in the 2-player game, the dominant player, the overlord, will get a point, or prestige, I should say, and some money. And then in a 3-player game, first place gets that, second place gets that, and so on. Now the other thing is, it also keeps you safe from having one of your worlds conquered. Now let's take a look here. So we've got 3 and 2. So purple is the dominant player, they're the overlord. So none of their planets are at risk or anything like that. The blue player and any other players that are in there that didn't get overlord are now at risk, but blue is safe in this case, because let's take a look. You look at the number of sort of populated or colonized planets that you have. For each ship that you have, you are able to protect your worlds. But it's a little bit interesting because if I only had one ship, then all of my worlds are at risk. So you need to have, at the end of the round, ships equal to the number of worlds, or else one might get taken over. So what I would do here, let's say I only had one ship. Okay, so that means I can't cover all my bases. I can't defend all the places I'm at. So then the purple player can say, oh, okay, I get to conquer a place. Now, if I had protected everything, then purple still gets to conquer something. They could put something down here, and all that does is prevent anybody else from settling there later. And then depending on their end game victory, that might give them points, it may not. But they don't have to do that either. They can choose to hold on to this, which we'll talk about in a second. But if I only had the one ship there, that means everything's in play. And I'm gonna say, well, you're gonna get a bunch of points for this because this is a colony. So I'm gonna just take that over, boom. And when you conquer it, you don't get any resources or anything. It's just kind of like a negative protection there from other players taking over that planet. So that's kind of the war phase. And then at the end of the war phase, you're going to look at your strength here. So let's say purple did that. And we look, okay, blue's got one ship and one strength. Purple has two ships over here, but no strength. So then you discard ships down to your strength. So maybe purple had collected ships over the course of their turn, but they never built their strength up. So these are just going bye-bye. But blue, even though they just got conquered, they have one strength, they can keep one ship. So you can use that for future exploration actions, trying to get Overlord on the next round and so on. And that's sort of how the war phase works. And you're just going to play over the course of the 5 rounds there. So this is just going to keep moving down, flipping these over as you go along, and then, putting any tokens out there that might need to be on there. And then you'll do all that scoring up like I mentioned. Okay, so that is Age of Galaxy. We'll just go into my overview there, my 3 pillars of review. First, we'll talk about play time. The box is 45 to 60 minutes. I would say after you've played a couple of games, I think that would be true. The thing that would keep it a little bit longer, especially when you're playing with like 4 players, is there's a lot to sort of digest there. I showed you all the actions and stuff. I didn't really get that much detailed into the different cards and the abilities and like that. But that really is kind of the secret of the game, kind of putting those sort of combos together, deciding over the course of the couple of rounds, what your main scoring objective is going to be and that kind of stuff. And that can be really overwhelming for, a new player. And that's going to take some time, and kind of, there is some stuff, like I mentioned at the beginning, there's some kind of quirkiness to it. It's like, oh, this is like a little different than, a lot of board games and card games that are out there. But I think once you get the hang of that, then that playtime will definitely come down. And it's similar to like a Race for the Galaxy, I think, in that way. Whereas in Race, it was kind of a lot of the icon parsing and figuring out and decoding, as well as parts of the game. Whereas this has a similar thing, but it's not heavily icon driven. There's a lot of text on the card, so it's just a lot of load to take on initially that will pay off. Now, player count, I've only played it solo and 2 player. I've not played it with 3 or 4. I kind of feel like I would personally cap out at 3 players, especially now that I've played it a few times, and I would have to get myself in the mindset of, okay, we've got maybe some new players at the table in a 4-player game, and just have to kind of level set. Like I mentioned, all that cognitive load, like, okay, Joel, it's going to take like an hour and a half probably or more as they get used to it. But it's great as a 2-player game. It's fantastic as a 2-player game. I mean, it's really good. And that's one of the things that it's kind of like, Age of Galaxy, Race for the Galaxy. Like, to me, Race for the Galaxy probably is best as a 2-player game, although I still like Race as a 3-player game. So I think I would like this as a 3-player game as well. And the solo game, which I'll get into now, is actually really cool. Now, there's like a basic sort of vanilla solo game where you just kind of like try to beat your score, which I don't really like that. But it does this other thing, which I think is a really good kind of, in a way, it's sort of a good learning tool, but it's not how I learned the game. I played 2-player a few times before I played this. But it does help you kind of enlighten you in terms of like, what is this game? What is this game all about? And that will kind of lead into my last pillar, like, what other games is this like? What is this like generally? Because it's very much like a puzzly kind of game. And what these do is they give you, like, sometimes you don't even draw cards. It's just like, you have these cards and put these cards out, and these are the cards that are for trade. This is that. You can't take this action, like this action's removed from the game, and or so on. So it just sets you up with like kind of a little nut to crack, and then it says you got to get at least 35 points or something by the end of the game, and then you've won. And that's what these are. I think there's like 6 different ones in here of like increasing difficulty. I've only beaten the first one, and but that really kind of gets at the spirit of what the game is, that you get this hand of cards and you're like, okay, how do I make this thing sing, and how do I make it work together? And I think that's going to be, there's going to be a little bit of that. If somebody's new at the game and somebody's played it like 4 or 5 times, there's going to be a little bit of a struggle there, depending on the player, but of like, oh gosh, you're just doing all this stuff and I can't get anything to work. So I think you're going to see some frustration like that. But because I had that frustration. I was like, God, it's just stuff together, and like, but by the end of that first game, I was like, okay, I kind of see what's happening here. And so I will say this: for your first game, I don't think it's a terrible idea just to look at your hand of cards. I wouldn't draft at all, because that's way too much overload. I would say do not draft. However, with this little caveat, which I know now, which I didn't know then, I would say go for one color of card. If you're like, you get your hand of 7 cards, you've already got 3 greens, maybe mulligan some others that aren't green and just draw more to see if you get more green, and be like, I'm going to go the green strategy. And then, just pick and go on the color, because then you know what your target is for your end game scoring. And then you can say, okay, well, how do I get there? Oh, I need to colonize, or I need to do have a lot of ships and conquer worlds during the war phase, or I want to have a bunch of these particular goods, or let's say I'm doing the technology one, I need to make sure I get a lot of the blue goods, the little knowledge tokens. And that's good, because that will give you a goal to kind of go for, and just then through that sort of thing, which will help give you direction, that will help you out in the game. Whereas once you have that direction, though, I think it'll be easy to say, oh, well, no, I've got this yellow card. This will actually help me out in this such and such a way. And so I can play that. I'm going to do 2 greens in this yellow, and the yellow is not really, targeted towards my objective, but it'll help. Help me do some of the basic things that I need to do to maybe, get some colonies down, get some production generated, that kind of stuff. So that's what I would kind of recommend there. And to me, that whole kind of puzzle of weaving those different kind of faction cards, those different colors together, is what really sets this apart, where it's not like a Race for the Galaxy or Terraforming Mars or San Juan or any of these other kind of card games, or like even some other Portal games like 51st State or what's the other one, Imperial Settlers, where it's like, draw cards, get cards, search for cards, do this stuff, set up combos, and then like you kind of run the combo every turn, that kind of thing. This isn't like that. This is its own kind of thing, and it's probably more towards the Res Arcana sort of vibe in a way. But for me, I really like this because it's like, okay, like I really try to just squeeze everything out of this, and it just feels like really, really good to do that, to get everything working together and squeeze stuff out. And so you've got that whole card combo part of it. And then part of your thing with the technology board, there's only like 9 technologies on there. But depending on how you're going for the end game bonuses based on your faction choice, you are going to look at that board very differently each game, which is pretty cool because there's only 9. I mean, it's just a couple of things. And then it's like, okay, but this time I'm not even going to worry about the left side of this technology track. I'm going to go all on the right. So it helps you kind of see that differently. So that even though there's not that many, it looks pretty cool. And so I've even seen where it's like, man, I still want to take some of these, but then I can go this way. And the way that the technology is very simply sort of just tree up just slightly, it really, really works. I really like it. So the last thing I'll mention, which is just to me, like really like locked in the game, and I was like, oh, okay, I love this game, is these trade cards at the top, right? Because remember, I talked about it in the walkthrough. So once you get to like a critical threshold of people that have taken a certain kind of trade action, it will flip a golden age for that. And so that's cool. Whatever the card flips over, I don't care at that point. The cool part about that is when it flips over and you've exploited that sort of trade avenue enough, everybody that was sort of involved with that gets those tokens back. And so now you have a round where you have more than 3 actions, which is huge. Especially if you're playing like a 2-player game and you're like, I'm going to work, and you get like 3 tokens back. You're like, okay, you're getting 3 actions. I get 6 this turn. So, buckle your seatbelt, But then I can see with a multiplayer game where it's like, oh, you're kind of like, piggybacking off of that. Like I maybe don't want to do that action, but it's like, hey, I need chips. So it's like, yeah, I get some chips. But then I know I'm going to get that token onto that card, which is going to help flip it. And then I'm going to get that token back. So next round, maybe just getting the 1 extra action is just going to be, gives you like, oh, now I got some breathing room. And because that's in there, a lot of times with these kind of real crunchy sort of, curmudgeonly sort of Euro games, which this almost kind of is, it's like they never give you like that, that release valve type of thing, or it's some combo kind of thing. It's like some like stage building towards this thing, which can get kind of procedural after a while. But this is cool because it's an interaction between the players, and it's like a brinkmanship type of attitude, and that's really cool. It's like, okay, no, and then it's fun because like the whole table. I mean, I've only played it with 2, but the whole table's like, yeah, cool. Like now I get to do extra stuff, and so that's just kind of a neat feeling. It makes you feel good about kind of this thing. Okay, gosh, if I just had 1 more action, that kind of thing always happens in games. This gives you a way, and also gives you a way to kind of set that up too. Because I've played a game of this, come back to it and be like, man, I only had 1 action. I was like, yeah, you know what? If I just did this thing and helped trigger a golden age on that previous turn, I would have been good. I might have won the game or whatever, but it would have made my turn like way, way cooler. And so I really like that. I think that's a very interesting thing. And I'll just leave with this last sort of point here. Whereas, if you could classify this as like a Race for the Galaxy or some kind of other, big multi-use card game type of thing, a lot of those, they have some kind of interaction, but some of them are really sort of fake interaction. I wouldn't call Race like that, personally, but depending on how you play it and what expansions. But this is cool because it's like another little twist. It's not like a direct, screw you action, but because you have that trade thing where you can trigger the golden age and all the players can kind of participate, and then you have the little overlord thing, which is it's like a light slap to the face. It's not like a whole like gut punch type of thing, because if you didn't set yourself up to be protected, then that's kind of your own fault if somebody takes one of your colonies. But the thing is you already got the resources out of it, and you're losing some end game points. And so it's not like they took something from you that you had, but something that you were gonna have. But also there's other ways to protect your colonies, some special abilities on the technology board and also in some of the cards. So there are other ways to do that, and it's just like 1, and maybe it's just once per game, because then maybe you are the overlord and and then the other guy's protected. So it's an interesting thing it feels like Through the Ages in a way, in the way that the combat works in Through the Ages, where it's what I'm saying. If you played Through the Ages, you probably know what I'm saying, but if you haven't, then it'll be difficult. But it's like you're just trying to like hit a threshold of like protecting yourself necessarily, not really being an aggressor. And so it has that sort of feel in this case, loosely. And that's cool. I mean, I think that's a neat kind of way to do it. And then it makes you also very careful about spending those ships to explore. And then there might be other reasons that you might spend a ship through some cards and things like that. So it's pretty interesting that way. And also, since the thing is so tight, just because you have ships doesn't mean you're going to have them, because you got to have like the strength to move up to keep the ships. So, I mean, you can sit there and hit me with 4 ships this round, but if you're discarding all of them at the end of the round, then it doesn't matter. And then like, there's all these cards and combos and stuff like that that will generate ships for you every round. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. I don't think there's a duplicate card in the deck. So anyway, I really have enjoyed the game. I'm like, wow, where did this game come from? This is just really cool and interesting and different. it feels kind of old school, you know, like a Race for the Galaxy or 51st Date or whatever, that kind of game. But it does just some really different, neat stuff. And I can't recommend it enough. And the solo stuff is really cool. I'm excited to kind of dive into more of this and work through some of the more difficult scenarios and stuff like that. And I think these are really cool and fun. And again, player count I prefer, I think, with 2 over the solo, because it's just that neat interaction with the trading and all that stuff. So definitely take a look. Thanks.